I'm Detail74, and this is Super Roboy Any Run. This video is intended as a submission to the Benelux Speedrunner Gathering Annual 2025, and I have said that sentence too many times in the last 2 weeks. Super Roboy is a Metroidvania that came out, I want to say January of this year, might have been early February. It's quite good. It's a very short little indie game, and it's absolutely fantastic. I really recommend it. I have a funny little history with this game. I got an advance copy for free from the developer because he'd seen a few of my streams and he thought that it would be the type of game I would enjoy. So massive shoutouts to Vincent Penning for getting me this game on the cheap, as it were. But yeah, as it turns out, it's an absolute hoot, and I really enjoy speedrunning it also. So over the last few days, I've been sort of learning the route, and I'm having a good time with it. So Super Roboy on the whole is a fairly stock Metroidvania in terms of movement. We have this sliding move, and obviously our arsenal is going to increase as time goes on, this being a Metroidvania and all. But for right now, this slide is basically all we've got. We can slide, we can jump, we can shoot in a variety of angles, and that's more or less our moveset, but it will grow. Right here, we just learned the special shot ability, which is just going to basically be a damage increase. It doesn't really do much of anything outside of that. It's that little meter up at the top there, the special meter. When that's full, you can activate the special shot, and it does this whole big explosion. It's cool. Mostly that's going to come up on bosses. I'm not really going to use it anywhere else. Because interestingly, killing enemies is kind of actively bad for us in this speedrun most of the time. The reason for that is that there's a few different kinds of bonuses that you get as you progress through the game. There's speedrunning bonuses and pacifist bonuses. Pacifist bonuses you get by not killing anything before you leave an area, and speedrunning bonuses you get by making certain time goals throughout the game. And what both of those do is they level you up. If you're not going for any of those bonuses, normally the way that you would level up would be by collecting this currency that's floating around everywhere, and then enemies also drop, and then just selecting which ability you want to upgrade every once in a while, sort of Souls style. But if you get the bonuses, then instead you just get flat levels as time goes on. And so despite the fact that we're never going to spend a single penny, we're actually going to end this run at level 17 on all 3 stats, all the same, because of those bonuses. But in order to get the pacifist bonus, we have to not kill anything, so hence using the special shot that's basically just extra damage doesn't really make sense. Anyway, throughout this first sort of tutorial area, we've just had to kill the Sentinel boss, the first boss of the game, and we've gotten our first sort of real progressive upgrade, which is I forget the name, the target attack. There's a bunch of these different, charged up moves in the game, and I'd be lying if I said I could remember which one was which, but I think it's the target attack, specifically the plasma target, since that's the only type of gun that we have right now. The target attack is fairly simple. As you shoot enemies, this little meter appears above their head, and once it's full, once the circle is completed, you can press the target attack button, and it'll detonate all of the targets that you have on any enemies right now, and they'll take damage. Now, that damage increases the more things you're targeting at once. So in casual gameplay, what you'll often do is just tag a bunch of enemies in the same area, and then just send them all to heck all at once, which is really, really cool. It's a very awesome mechanic. There's a lot of rooms sort of built around that where you're being swarmed a bit, and really the easiest way to deal with it is to just shoot everybody a little bit and then detonate the target attack, which is great. For us, for the most part, it's a door opener. We're going to need it to blow up some barrels, which you've already seen me do a bit earlier, and that's about it. But anyway, we get this second ability that's a little more exciting. This is the spike roll. If we press slide again while already in a slide, we'll do the spike roll. That does damage, and also it goes very fast. Interestingly, if you spike roll off of a ledge, you will drop like a rock, though you will hover in place for just a split second first. And so sliding or rolling off of a ledge gives you a different kind of momentum afterwards. And so which one we actually want to do in a given context, well, is context dependent. The spike roll also allows us to destroy those types of walls, like the one we just passed, so we need it to advance. We're going to need to do that several times. Again, we get the pacifist bonus and speedrun bonus, meaning we've now leveled up. We have more health, more damage, and all of our charged moves charge up faster, all of which is very useful. That gets us to the second area of the game, Mushroom Den, which we have just now already exited and will never come back to. The third area of the game, Forgotten Swamp, will be a little more long-lived, and here is where we are going to do what's more or less this run's only glitch that's actually useful, or its only unintended sequence break. This is called -2 days skip, because I get to name it, because I found it, and I like that name, so, you know. Anyway, it involves what's called a standing ledge slip, where I'm going to stand on air, basically, by being right next to this pushable block. And then I'm going to slide the other way and jump using my coyote time to just barely make it up to that high ledge. Doing this allows us to avoid having to get the ability that would let us push that block, which would take us a little ways around Forgotten Swamp's west side, which would take maybe half a minute or so. It's not that big of a time save, but for a run this short, it actually kind of is. The run is only about 20 minutes long. So that's a really nice skip. I could go into a lot more detail about it, but we don't have that kind of time, unfortunately. It's cool, though. Anyway, doing -2 days skip gets us over to this east end of Forgotten Swamp, where we are going to fight our next boss. This is Jane. And the speedrunning bonus is going to come into effect here because we got here so quickly. The boss health has already been depleted by quite a great amount. It's possible to get it to go down even further, A, by getting here even faster, and B, by not saving at all before getting to Jane. You can actually basically kill her instantly. But unfortunately, that's not particularly safe, right? Because if you die at any point throughout before Jane, then your run is just sort of dead. So I'm not quite doing it for these recordings, where I'm trying to get just a reasonable run to submit to BSG, but I would do it if I was trying to PB. Anyway, killing Jane there, unfortunately, is going to result in a very long load, and this is because my computer is not very powerful. So I've timed it this morning, and compared to the world record by Shigon, I am losing, give or take, 3 minutes, probably a little bit more than 3 minutes, just to loading times. So, you know, that's great. And the main reason for that is this. Basically, after most boss fights, there's usually a long cutscene. It's this cool little comic book style thing. But there is a setting to turn those off. Unfortunately, they take forever to load in and back out again, and the game still needs to do that, even if it doesn't force you to sit through the comic itself. So it doesn't actually get rid of the loading times associated with them, just the comics themselves, which is still faster than turning that setting back on, but, you know, it does mean that after, I think, 5 out of the 6 or 7 boss fights that we're going to do, I'm going to need to just sort of sit there for 30 to 40 seconds, which kind of stinks. Anyway, defeating Jane gives us the plasma shot, I believe it's called. It's this charged attack as well, where it expends this particular resource that you can find scattered around somewhere, and it's just this really powerful attack. It's actually the most powerful thing we have access to right now, and will continue to be for the remainder of the run. So we are going to use that to dispatch certain bosses, but mostly, again, it is also kind of just a key. We needed it to get into the Ancient Ruins, which we've also just left, and consequently to get to Minos' lair, because getting through Ancient Ruins is the only way to Minos' lair. Minos' lair here is a watery area where it's sort of hard to move around sometimes because you can't move fully in water, very standard stuff. And in order to fix that, we're going to get basically this game's equivalent of the gravity suit, but in order to get there, we're going to need the blade jump upgrade. And in order to unlock that, we're going to need to collect a crystal, as well as actually unlock the blade jump so that we can spend the crystal to then activate it. And in order to do all of that, we need to head up all the way into the northeast corner of Minos' lair. So I'm just going to waste a little bit of time here while waiting for the platform. There's no reason to really sweat that. And then we can hop on up. There's an upcoming room here where there's a bunch of these big, giant, like, arrow traps. I die here a lot. It can be really scary. But luckily for me, on this run, I basically got the full pacifist bonus. If I'd killed even a single enemy other than bosses before this, I wouldn't have been able to tank 2 hits from those arrows. But with full pacifist bonus, I can actually get hit by them twice without dying, which means I can sort of just blaze through that room without really worrying about it, which is really great. Otherwise, I'd have to wait out the cycle a whole bunch. Anyway, the blade jump here allows us to interrupt either our slide or our spike roll to do this big blade jump. I mean, you can see it, right? It's a blade jump. The name is very accurate. But depending on when in your movement you activate the blade jump, you're going to have more or less momentum because you keep the momentum that you have when the blade jump starts. Meaning, with correct timing, you can do what we're calling a blade launch, or what I've been calling a blade launch. I say we, there's really only 2 people running this game, and we haven't talked about it too much. But what I've been calling a blade launch, which is this full speed blade jump, which is very useful because that allows you to keep your speed from the start of the spike roll, when the spike roll would normally sort of decrease in speed again at the end, right? And sort of have a little like ending lag and sort of just not be super fast. But by doing a blade launch, you can actually just keep your speed all the way through, and it's nice and quick. That's the main way that we're going to move throughout the rest of the game, because since we're not getting any of the late game upgrades, we're not going to get any faster. Pirano here would be a very difficult boss casually, but sort of just dies due to how high level we are because of all of our various bonuses. One single plasma shot just sort of kills him. Because we do a reasonable amount of damage at this point, but also his health is already mostly gone because of the speedrunning bonus. Getting here in like 10 minutes is not something that that is like normal in any way. So Pirano is gone, and that gives us, again, the submariner, basically the gravity suit. It just makes it so that we can move normally in water instead of being bogged down by it. I'm going to head back the way we came through Big Scary Scythe Room once again, to head down into the water to get to the south end of Minos' lair, where we are going to find, fight, and kill Minos. Actually, I think he canonically doesn't die, actually. Scratch that. I'm not sure. Anyway, we're not looking at any of the story cutscenes, so we're not going to find out. And Minos, unfortunately, has booby-trapped the place, obviously, and so this whole area is sort of full of danger. I can't actually take another hit at this point because I ate that mine full to the face, so we just have to wait it out on the second one. Kind of unfortunate. Ideally, you get a pattern where you can get past the first 2 layers of mines without taking a hit, and then you cop the hit on the third. But, oh well. Okay, well, I can't even take a hit from these now. These don't do a lot of damage, but... Okay, there we go. Forgot about that. That was terrifying. Anyway, that gets us to Minos. Luckily, there's a save station here, so I can just heal back up. We're not at full health right now because the pacifist bonus and speedrunning bonus only happened after I saved, so I didn't actually get to refill that part of my health bar. But luckily, Minos is a bit of a pushover, and it didn't really matter. It's very easy to die there. Minos, at this point with the level that we are, Minos just one-shots you. Everything he does one-shots you, including contact damage. But, you know, if you're not too much of a dingus, you can just avoid him, and you'll be okay. And same hat as with Pirano, right? Most of his health is already gone because of the speedrunning bonus, and we're just like totally reasonably leveled in terms of damage. So he does just sort of die pretty easily, which is awesome. Again, a really long load here because my computer's kind of slow. This load would take 2 seconds on Shigon's computer, but takes 38 on mine. It's just, yeah, you know, whatever. So it goes. Anyway, defeating Minos gives us the explosives, which we can use to make our way into the power plant. That's more or less the only time we're going to need those. They're going to get replaced by the ion explosives very soon, at which point, you know, the original explosives will no longer exist. So these are not going to see that much use. The power plant here, we're just here to make our way to the next area, basically. But unfortunately, there's a single electric type barrel in our way, so we're going to need to go all the way down into the bottom left of the power plant to defeat the elemental to get the lightning bullets, so we can actually pass to the living quarters. The lift to the living quarters is right next to the entrance of power plant, and we have to come all the way down here just for the lightning bullets, just for that one barrel. That's literally it. Elemental, much the same as every other boss, just sort of dies. He doesn't actually have a long cutscene associated with it, though, at least, so that's nice. And then we're going to head back on up. Most of these enemies at this point will one or two shot me. The little robot guys are an exception. Those take, I think, 4 shots at this point. But again, depending on exactly how well you did with your bonuses, it could be much worse. If you have any amount less pacifist bonus than we do right now, everything here becomes a 2-shot, I'm pretty sure. And the big magnets might even 1-shot, I'm not 100%. Anyway, having the lightning bullets, we're just making our way back through exactly the same rooms that we were in before. We are being afflicted by Disrupt right now, but that really doesn't affect us in a way that we care about. So I'm not going to bother saving until we get to the next area, and we can clear that status condition. There's no need to do it now. This lift, once again, takes absolutely forever on my computer, but wouldn't on a more powerful device. It'll be an interesting question what estimate I'm going to submit this run at, because, you know, my PB is a 21, but without the terrible loading times, it'd be more like a 19, so I don't know. Anyway, here in the living quarters, we're only really making 2 brief visits, once to make our way to the facility grounds, and then once to head to the end of the game. Just using some slightly clever movement, it's a little scuffed, but some slightly clever movement to make my way through these exploding guys invincibly, because they do a lot of damage, and I do not want to touch them. Those funny little spider guys that send out the slow projectile, that instant kills, so we cannot be touching that. And that gets us to the facility grounds, where I'm just going to blade launch around a whole bunch, because this area is very nice and open. You can kind of just do a lot of like big launches. That's really fun. Touching these flowers while I'm not being invincible or taking a hit from their projectiles would kill me at this point. It would be a 2-shot from full health. So I gotta be a little careful, but there we go. And that gets us to another save point, another boss fight, the botanist, which will not last long. Goodbye, botanist. And then we get another 40-second load because my computer is bad. It's really unfortunate. Because it's so funny how they die so quickly, but then you get this really anticlimactic, like, long as hell load, and it's just, yep. Okay. Still loading. Anyway, it's a real shame that this speedrun's so fast, because there's so much to say about Super Roboy. It's actually like just a brilliant game. I can't recommend it enough. And there's a lot of cool little mechanics going around, you know, some of which I'm using, many of which I'm ignoring. But I just don't really get to talk about it too much. Anyway, we now have the ion explosives that's going to allow us to destroy those big spiky walls, as well as the sort of the smaller ones that we could destroy with the normal explosives. That's going to allow us to get into the bottom end of the living quarters, which is how we get to the end of the game. So at this point, that's all we're doing. We're just heading to the final boss, or the final 2 bosses, so that we can end the game. Right there, you might have noticed that I stuttered a little bit on those slides. I'm not 100% sure I want to call it a glitch yet. I need to talk to Vincent about it, but I'm not sure if it's like a weird intentional thing or not. But there's a couple of things, like taking damage at the correct moments in your animation, or falling off ledges in a particular way, or these kinds of things, that make it so that your slide sort of interrupts itself and like stutters like that. And it's actually useful. It's actually fast for tech if you can set it up properly in certain places. But it's just a little bit inconsistent and weird, and we've still got to look into that. If I recall correctly, I did something really embarrassing here. I think I die like 3 or 4 times on this room. This room is hard, don't get me wrong. This is one of the final bosses, if you will, of this speedrun. There's these guys that have a relatively fast-moving projectile and damn good aim. there is a good, consistent way past this first one, but I hadn't really figured it out on this run. And then the second one is sort of the real problem, but you can also juke that guy. And then at this point, we're basically home free. This is fine. So yeah, at this point, it's just the Virgil boss fight and then the final boss, neither of which will last particularly long. Though, since I accidentally wasted my plasma shot here, the Virgil fight is going to last a lot longer than it should. Right there, I got a similar glitch to the stutter sliding, where you can also have the aiming stutter like that, which makes a crazy noise and is just generally really annoying. Luckily, you can immediately disable that effect by just actually pressing aiming again. So that's nice, at least. I did die there to one of Virgil's leftover projectiles, but since he was already dead too, that takes precedence and we'll be totally fine. We'll be respawned in with the boss already dead. It doesn't even incur any extra loading times or anything like that. It would if it wasn't for the fact that my computer's so slow, but like it adds like a second or two basically, which is just like not relevant on this 40-second load that we're looking at, right? I don't really care. Anyway, I do have to pick up another plasma shot from that float right there, because we do need one to activate the lift to the final area. Using one on Virgil is definitely still worth it, because you'll note sort of how long that Virgil fight took. If I'd hit him with a plasma shot, he would have died instantly. So like you can imagine that's easily worth the time of just quickly walking to the right and picking up another one. Unfortunately, I missed the plasma shot on the lift button, and we can only carry one at a time, so I have to go all the way back over past the Virgil arena to actually pick up another one and activate the elevator for real this time. That's a very unfortunate, like, half-a-minute time loss there right at the end. This run was really scuffed, especially the end, like dying repeatedly in that earlier room, and then this, and then also the Virgil fight, you know, not getting cheesed the way that it's supposed to. I think I can probably sub 1 or sub 21 without really like changing anything, but it's a little close. Anyway, the final boss is going to last less than a second. He's dead. And that's the game. So yeah. That's Super Roboy Any Percent. I don't really get to tell you much of anything about the game, unfortunately. Other than that, I think it's really good and you should go play it. And also, I'd like to quickly shout out, I guess, the speedrunning community for this, which again is currently basically just me and Shigon. We are setting up a Discord server, and we will be adding that to speedrun.com, you know, shortly. And we're hoping that we can get some other people playing this game, get a little bit of help on like glitch hunting and routing and this kind of thing. Because there's a lot of potential here. And it's a very exciting game. Mostly, I'm looking forward to routing the bigger categories, routing hundo, routing true ending. But I don't really know where to begin, honestly. So, you know, if you're interested in this game, pick it up on Steam. It's not expensive, but it is very good. And then once you've played it, just like go over to speedrun.com, get in the Discord, come talk to us. Having said all of that, like I said, mostly this video is intended as a submission to BSG Annual 25, my recruitment attempt aside. I'm probably going to submit this at an estimate of 25 minutes, which is going to be extremely generous. I don't even really usually make 25 minutes, you know, on my home computer. But just, and I mean, the setup computer at BSG is going to be way faster as well, so it's just like not going to be necessary. But just to be safe, you know, just in case I die a whole bunch or the setup PC isn't as fast as I think it is, I'm just going to set the estimate to something that would be reasonable even for if I was doing it at home. So hopefully that'll be fine. I'm also hoping, which is a really cool thing actually, that Vincent Penning, who made the game, can actually hopefully join us at BSG. I've been talking to him about it, and if the run gets in, we're going to try and you know, schedule it for a time when he'll be able to make it, so he can come on the couch for commentary and see the shenanigans that we get up to. So I'm hoping that'll happen. yeah, I think that's all that I really have to say. I could sit here and talk about the run a whole bunch, but like the run's already over, so I'm not gonna do that. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for sticking with me for the last 25 minutes. It's been a very brief experience, and yeah, that's all from me. Ciao.